Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from Germany as always. Today is Sunday the 24th of June 2018 and I'm so glad that you're joining me today to talk about some knitting. If you're watching for the first time, welcome, and if you're coming back, thank you so much for coming back. I really hope you'll enjoy this podcast, and I really appreciate those of you who are regular viewers of the podcast. Before we get started, first of all, very quickly, I am suffering from hay fever, unfortunately, which means that my voice gets croaky and my nose gets sniffly, and there's nothing really I can do besides not record, which is not what I wanted to do today. So I'm recording anyways. I hope it won't be too bad for your sake and mine, but there you go. Today I will talk about some admin, then some finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions, and some chatter at the end, whatever happens. So first of all, for admin, we have a group on Ravelry, which is called the Happy Knitting Podcast Group, and I can only recommend you guys join in there. That's where you can find all the knit-alongs and giveaways, threads for questions, introductions, a swap thread. So feel free to check that out. You can also find me on Ravelry as Wipfi, which is WUEPFI. And you can find me on Instagram as the Happy Knitting Podcast, which is where I'm most active. Quick apology there. I have not been on top of my Instagram and Ravelry because I have been working so much, and especially when I'm traveling while working, some things just disappear and I just kind of disappear as well. So blanket apology there. I try to be as responsive as I can. I try to answer questions that need to be answered. Sometimes people will tag me in photos and I will like them and not have the time to respond. Please just understand that I get quite a lot of messages, and I'm not saying this to stop you from sending messages, not at all, but just please understand that sometimes it gets a little too much. But anyways, that's where it's at. The easiest place is always the group on Ravelry because first of all, I can at some point catch up, and also other people can chat with you, so maybe they can answer your questions. At the moment, we have 2 knit-alongs going. We have the Couch and Crackers sock cow, which is coming to an end. So get your entries in. If you're not finished, post a photo of your unfinished sock and that'll count as well. I will close the thread on July 1st and then I will draw winners probably like towards the middle of July because we'll be on holiday, but I will draw a winner anyways. And we also have the summer stash down, which I have decided I won't mention every single week because that's running until the end of August. So that's a lot of weeks to be talking about this, and you guys are probably sick of it. If you haven't heard about the summer stash down, just check out the group and you'll find everything there. Next up, let's have some coffee. This is my second coffee for the day. It's like 10:30. I'm going pretty good. You totally needed to know that. So let's stop saying and actually get into some knitting. I have 2 finished objects this week. The first one is a pair of socks. These are my Mercury socks that I was knitting for myself, and then my sister Paulina was here last weekend and she really liked them, and I said to her, try them on, knowing that I have really big feet. I have European size 41 and she has very small feet. She has European size 36. So of course she tried them on and they were too big, but she really liked them, like sort of for house socks because they're just very comfortable with the pattern. So I said to her I will rip out the toe and make them somewhat fit for her feet, and now they will be hers. So that's why they are not on sock blockers, because they won't fit, or if they do fit I will ruin them. But these are the socks. The pattern is Mercury Socks by Kim Drotar, which is a free pattern on Ravelry that everyone raved about a few years ago maybe. It's a really fun, simple lace texture pattern. I adapted it to work over 66 stitches. I think they had a 60 stitch and a 72, so I just went for the 66. I did a fish lips kiss heel. I did this one over 36 stitches just because the pattern worked out that way. What else? So I must admit, I knit the first one and obviously had already finished the toe, so I knew I had to rip back the toe. Then I did the second one and I knit the leg too long. And I made a mistake in the pattern. So these are not perfect, but I know my sister won't mind. The yarn that I used for these is a German indie dyed yarn called Tausendschön. This was one of the first ever indie dyed yarns that I knit with when I started knitting or started getting into the podcasting scene. I really like the yarn. This is one of their speckled colorways. It has a number V0393, but I think they are one of a kind, but definitely a really good, affordable indie dyed sock yarn if you're in Germany. So these are done. They look kind of funny because the toe is kind of short, but they will fit and my sister will like them, I'm sure. My second finished object, of course, is the elephant in the room, which I'm wearing, you guys. I'm wearing it. I finished the sweater and then I had it lying on my desk with my other finished objects. And I got ready for the podcast and I was wearing a different hand-knit sweater, and then it suddenly dawned on me that I had finished this. And I hadn't even tried it on after blocking it. So literally 5 minutes ago was the first time that I put the sweater on, and I love it. It is perfect. So first things first, this is the Sipila sweater by Caitlin Hunter of Boyland Knitworks. I knit it out of Drops Flora, which is a fingering weight commercial yarn. It's a wool and alpaca blend that I really like, and I've talked about it a million times. I think this is my third or possibly fourth sweater out of this yarn. So yes, the majority of my sweaters are either knit in this yarn, Drops Flora, or in Holz Super Soft, which I'll get back to later. So anyways, this is it. It's a top-down yoke sweater. Sorry for the sniffling. I played around with the gauge, so I think I knit the second size up, but with a slightly bigger gauge. I used 3.5 millimeter for this entire thing. As you can see, I did sort of like 3/4 length sleeves without the colorwork. There's colorwork on here, but I really like the length of the sleeves. I just kind of did my own decreases because the sleeves in the pattern were obviously sort of written for the colorwork, which I wasn't going to do. I did some decreases and sort of like darts in the back, which I can't really show you, but the fit is just perfect on this one. I'm so excited. I was worried that here with the colorwork it was going to be slightly too tight, but that blocked out perfectly. And I will try to awkwardly get up and show you. It's not too short, not too long, and it just fits really, really, really well. I really like it. So I love the sweater. This is exactly how I wanted it to turn out. I love when you knit a sweater and it doesn't just look right, it also just, it feels perfect. Like the yoke, the fit, it's not constricting me, it's not too wide, it is just perfect, and I'm so excited about this. Of course, I mentioned before that I really love this yarn. It softens up beautifully. It's a really, well, it's always hard because people ask me, is this soft? And no, it is not as soft as your superwash merino. It is just not. It is proper wool. It has little hairs sticking out. It does have alpaca, so it's not super soft. But it is very soft for what it is. So that might not help you at all, but if you're unsure, just get one ball, which I think is like $2 or something. Try it out, give it a block, and I'm sure you'll be fine. I really, really like this. In terms of modifications, I messed up the increases on the neckline, but that worked out okay. I did German short rows for the first time and love them and never want to do any other short rows again. What else? I think I knit the chart pretty much as you're supposed to. I did like 2 little mistakes and no one will ever see them, so that'll be fine. I really like this rolled neckline. Caitlin Hunter has them in quite a few of her patterns, I think. This is my second time knitting her a pattern of hers, and I previously knit the Sunset Highway, and it just makes for a really nice, comfortable fit. I really like it. So yeah, I'm just over the moon with this sweater and I'm so happy with it, and yeah, very, very, very excited. Like I said, 3.5 millimeter needles, US size 4. And the fun thing is now that I have a couple of sweaters knit in this yarn, I don't actually have to swatch anymore. I just pull out my sweaters, measure the gauge, and from the sweaters that are already finished. And then I go on Ravelry and check which needle size I use. So I've knit this yarn on a 3.5 millimeter needle, and I've knit it on a 3.25, and I've knit it on a 3. So that will give me the perfect gauge, and I don't have to do gauge swatches anymore, because I am so lazy. And also I like to kind of see and feel the how a certain gauge will wear over time, and the previous sweater that I knit on the same gauge with this yarn is just perfect, so I tend towards always knitting 3.5 millimeter needles with this yarn in the future, which of course is very much personal preference, and that is just what suits my knitting style, makes me really comfortable. But yeah, that is my method to that. So I don't really know what else to tell you about this sweater, so I guess we'll move on to some works in progress. So I was getting all my whips ready for this podcast, and I realized I have one less whip than I thought. So that was good, because I thought I had 4 pairs of socks on the needles, but it turns out it's only 3, which is good. It's still crazy, but good. So first of all, let's talk about some socks that I'm knitting for Kai. I have almost finished the first sock. I just need to kitchen the toe. And these are my socks knit out of Socks Yeah, which is a brand of yarn by Rachel Coopy of Coop Knits. The green is called Krypton and the blue is called Iolite. This is my first time knitting with this yarn, and I talked in depth about how much I love this yarn last week, so I won't go into detail today. But I really love it. These socks are for Kai, so I'm doing 68 stitches on a US size 1 2.25 millimeter needle. As you can see, I did some stripes at the top, then did the entirety of the sock in the blue, which is blowing out, and then just a little bit before the toe I started the green again, and now I just need to kitchen her. I purposely didn't kitchen the toes because Kai was on a business trip as well, and I wanted him to try them on before I closed the toe, because ripping back Kitchener stitch and then changing toes is not that fun. But yeah, the first sock is done, so I will finish that today and hopefully get the second one started. Kai is so excited about these. He really loves them, and he tried them on today and they fit perfectly. So he kind of said that he only wants socks out of this exact yarn now, which is exciting, but also means that, well, I should really use my stash instead of buying more of this stuff, but we'll see how that goes. Anyways, very excited about this. And I think that's all I have to tell you guys about these. I used the Fish Lips Kiss heel as usual, and that is pretty much it. I did the jogless stripes on the back, but I pulled too tight, so they are not perfectly jogless, but they'll be fine, who cares. That's how I feel about a lot of my knitting lately. I just make mistakes, and rather than go crazy about them, I'm starting to get more relaxed. Next up, I have quite a few new cast-ons that you haven't seen, but I'll show you this first. These are still my sock blank socks. I'm not making a ton of progress. I'm kind of sick of them, but that's so sad because they're really beautiful. This is the first sock that I had finished already last week, and the second sock I have started. I just need to do some World Cup knitting and focus on these, and they should be done. I just need to work on them, really. The yarn is by Sandra's Craftfulness. This is the sock blank that I'm using, and once again, US size 1 2.25 millimeter needles. So not very exciting, but they will be a really beautiful pair of socks once I actually finish them. And I really do like the yarn base as well. It's a really pretty and nice to work with merino nylon blend. So that is that. Next up, let's talk about some new cast-ons. So in here, I have my World Cup socks, which also goes into summer stash down and acquisitions and all kinds of stuff. But I bought this yarn to test it out a couple of weeks back, or maybe a month ago. This is Comfort Sockenwolle. comfort sock yarn, made in Italy for H&W Germany. So it's a German brand, I assume. This is colorway number 11804. And I bought a couple of balls of this because you know how much I love to try German sock yarns, or just generally commercial sock yarns, and then tell you guys how I like it. So I decided to cast this on for World Cup knitting. And then I also got some new needles, which are the Addy Crazy Trio. Funny story about these. I didn't want them, and then I decided I did want to try them because I tried them when my friend was knitting with some of those. So I ordered them, and then a day later realized I had ordered the wrong size. So then I ordered them on Amazon. So I contacted them and they said, well, your order has not been shipped yet, so you can just click on cancel your order. So I clicked on that, and lo and behold, 3 hours later, I got an email from Amazon saying, yay, your needles have just been shipped. And I was like, well, no, I didn't really want that. And then a day later, I got another email from Amazon saying, well, you said you wanted to cancel your order, but unfortunately it has been shipped, so we can't cancel it anymore. So that was very, very smart. I know I could have sent them back, but I decided to just keep them, because that's what lazy people do, and I guess that's how online shopping works, because you always keep more than you wanted. So I got them in the 2mm US size 0 needle size rather than the 2.25, which I wanted. But then I kind of figured, I tried the 9-inch circulars before, and I used it zeros for that as well, because with the tiny needles, you need to knit a little bit looser anyways, so I just decided to go with it. So these are the Addy Crazy Trio. I think they're called Flexi Flips or something over in the States. And they're crazy expensive over there. I have no idea why someone would pay $25 or $30 for this in the States, but that's just me. Once again, I'm breaking the rule of not talking about prices in the podcasting world. Anyways, I decided to try these on with a new yarn, and this is what I've come up with. I have I'm close to finishing the first sock. So this is how the yarn is striping up. I think it's a quite fun sort of patterning, except there is one purple stripe in here that just blends into the gray and you can't see it, which is a little bit sad. But besides that, I do like the yarn. It's not coming out perfectly even, and it's hard for me to tell if it's the yarn or the needles, because obviously both of them are new for me. So it may have been smarter to try this yarn with my usual magic loop and try the needles with a yarn that I've used before. But the yarn is really nice. It is very soft. Again, it is softer than your Regia or Opal, which I appreciate. It also feels quite sturdy. So I think this will be a really good sort of wearable sock yarn from what I can tell so far. I also like it that when you stretch it out, the stitches still stay really nice and they don't kind of go all over the place, which sometimes happens. So that is it in terms of the yarn. I did a fish lipscus heel in garter stitch. I actually did the heel with the tiny needles as well, because I wanted to see if it's possible. And yes, it is. But it's also a little bit fiddly, so I'm not sure if I would do that again in the future. But I did the entire sock, including the heel, with these. In terms of the needles, I haven't decided if I like them yet. I'm forcing myself to knit at least an entire pair of socks before I make a decision, because it always takes time to get used to a new technique. In the beginning I was kind of awkward, and then I got into it, and then I started always dropping the stitches on the back of the needle because of the way that I was holding them. And by now I've kind of worked it out. And for example, yesterday we watched the German match. Oh my gosh, you guys, soccer, oh my gosh. And I knit from this brown stripe down to here in like an hour before then I had to put down my knitting because it was just too intense. So I'm definitely not super slow with these, which is a good thing. I'm just not sure if I love them, but we'll see how it goes, and I will keep you posted. The idea was that these might be really nice for train knitting and such, because usually I really like magic loop. But if you're, for example, knitting in the train and you have the big needles and you kind of flinging them around when you're changing it, it can be annoying for other people. So I thought with the small needles this might be quite good, and it might be more portable than DPN knitting, which is what I used to do and I really liked it, but you have 5 needles and with this you only have 3. So that is where I am with those. We'll see how it goes. I also haven't checked my gauge to see if I knit looser with these compared to my magic loop. I imagine so, but I'm not really sure, so I'll have to check and see how that goes. But anyways, that is it for some new sock yarn, some new needles, and my World Cup knitting. I knit on these for both of the German games that I watched, and some other games as well. So that is that. Next up, I have 2 new projects which are very, very exciting to me. First of all, in my Thimble and Thread Makes project bag, which I'm too stupid to open sometimes, is a new sweater cast on, because when you finish a sweater, you start a new sweater. I actually just cast this on Friday night. Just kind of out of nowhere, and there's not that much to show you yet, but this is going to be another Boiler Knitworks sweater by Caitlin Hunter, and this is going to be the Birkin sweater, which everyone and their grandmother has knit, and it just looks like a really beautiful sweater. And of course I wanted to do some more color work, so this is where I am with it. Before I picked the pattern, I decided I really want to knit some more with Holzgarn, because you know my love for Holz Super Soft. So then I have a bag of Holz that I ordered for like, I don't know, 50 or 60 bucks. And I got like 4 sweaters worth of yarn for that, because Holz is super affordable if you order it in the Netherlands. No, in Denmark. So I just went through the colors and kind of put things together and then chose a pattern. So I chose the Birkin sweater by Caitlin Hunter, which is a sweater with lots of little colorwork flowers at the top. But some people have done it in only 2 colors. And that actually looked really nice. So I'm not sure. I think I'm probably going to do it with just 2 colors, or I might make it 3. I'm not quite sure yet. The base color is this one, which is almond. The purple, here we go. This is it looks black, but it's a really dark purple, and now it's blowing out. This is Purple Haze. And I'm also thinking about using this as a third little accent color. So, not sure, maybe just this, maybe this. We'll see how it goes. All of these are Holzgarn Super Soft. This one is called Thistle Down. So if you haven't seen the label before, this is what it looks like. It comes in 50-gram balls, I guess. And because it's almost like a lace weight, but you can knit it at any gauge. It's a very lightweight yarn, and it's perfect for sweater knitting if you're not afraid of changing up your gauge every now and then. Talking about this, I had something prepared, and where is it now? Talking about Holz Super Soft, I had washed part of, like a little part of this ball, because I wanted to see if it was going to be color fast, because I'm not going to knit an entire sweater in a very, very light color just to then have it bleed. So I washed part of it, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to show you guys how this yarn changes after washing. I have previously posted on Instagram some photos of swatches before and after blocking and the way that this yarn proofs up. I'm not going to go into that as well, and please don't ask me where those photos are, because I will never find them again. But just because I was doing it anyways, I will try to give you a close-up. Let's see how good this autofocus works. I have 2 strands here. One is before washing and one is after washing. There you go. Can you see how this side here, this is what it looks like before you wash it, and it's very stringy and thin, whereas this is after washing and it becomes much more plump, much more woolly, and that is exactly the effect that you will have with your finished garment as well. So I just think that is so interesting, and Whole Super Soft fascinates me all over again, just as all these woolly wools do. I really, really like that, and I think you can see quite well here how that works. So I just thought that was interesting for me as well as for you. In terms of how I wash my Whole Super Soft sweaters, I only do that with this yarn, but I actually, when I finish it, I don't use wool wash. I soak this in dishwashing liquid, which is a tip that I found on the internet. You soak it as long as possible. You can soak it for like overnight if you want to. I usually do it for like 30 minutes at least. Just put water and dishwashing liquid, let it sit, and when you come back to it, the water is all gross but what happens is that there's lots of spinning oil in this yarn, and the spinning oil comes out and it turns everything really murky and brown and weird. But then you have a beautiful sweater, and I think that dishwashing liquid is actually the way to go for that, because it is just exactly for that purpose, for getting like oily things out. So this is again the yarn after it's been blocked, and it's so beautiful. So that is it in terms of my excursion on Whole Super Soft. This is where I am with the sweater. I have finished the short rows, obviously. I'm just working on the colorwork, but I was distracted by another colorwork project, which I'll show you in 1 second. So that is where we are with that. I'm using 3.25 millimeter needles for this, because I was going to do 3 millimeter needles for the body and 3.25 for the colorwork. But I know that some people have been having issues with the fit of the sweater, because the yoke tends to be apparently a little bit too, the way the increases work as well, it tends to be a little bit tight on people, which is something that I had an issue with as well with the Winterfjell sweater by Ellie or Skandia. So I decided to play it safe and make it a little bit more oversized, because there's no problem with it being oversized, but if it's too tight, what will happen is that it kind of will like move up your shoulders as you're moving around, and that's really uncomfortable. So I'm doing 3.25, and I might go down up to a 3.5 for the body. I'm not quite sure yet. I do like, no, I don't know if that makes sense. We'll see how it goes. That's where I'm right now. I think that's a US size 5, and we will go from there. So that is my colorwork sweater. And then yesterday, this was becoming a bit of a ramble, but yesterday I went out for breakfast with my knitting friend Marion, and we were just going to have breakfast. And then of course, I think she came up with the idea that there's a yarn store very close to where we were having breakfast, which is Rauwerk. It's a local yarn store here in Munich that I haven't been to that many times, but they focus very much on natural yarns, and yeah, that's a really, really interesting yarn store. So we ended up going, and there was a hat displayed, and I immediately just jumped towards it and really, really liked it. Both the design as well as the yarn. And so we asked, and it turned out that it was the Beanie Christine, which is a design specifically for the owner of the yarn store. And it was designed by Knit for Passion, who is a Munich-based colorwork designer. And the yarn was a Jameson Spindrift, or Jameson and Smith. No, I'm lying to you. What is it? Jameson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight. And of course they had that there. So both my friend Marion and I decided to knit a hat and get the yarn for it, and both knit that hat. And we were getting a little bit competitive about it as well. But anyways, so I chose 4 shades, and I'm throwing stuff everywhere. And I have started my hat. So I have a bit of a yarn tangle mess here, but these are the 4 colors that I chose. I'm not going to go through them because they are written in my project page on Ravelry. So if you want to know the shade numbers, please just check them out. But these are the 4 colors that I chose. They're 25 grams each, and I really, really like this yarn. Oh my gosh, you guys. I really kind of wanted to get a sweater's worth immediately, but that was a little bit out of my price range. But this is a colorwork hat, and I never knit hats. I think I've knit 2 colorwork hats in my life. So it just seemed like a perfect opportunity to try a new designer, try a new yarn, and do some color work. So these are my 4 colors, and this is where I am on the hat. So I only cast this on last night, and I am obsessed with it. As you can see, it's color work. It starts with a corrugated rib and then goes into this flower motif, which I'm sort of halfway through right now. And I love it. I love working with this yarn. This is the perfect color work yarn. It's going to be another one of those yarns where it will change your world once you block it. I've seen the yarn blocked in the sample and it was just beautiful. And it's sticky. It will be perfect for steeking. It's perfect color work yarn and I just love it. I'm kind of sad that I love it so much because now I want more of it. But even now unblocked, the color work is already really, really beautiful. I'm using the recommended needle size, which is a US size, no, German 3mm needles. And the hat looks really, really big, but I tried it on and I think it should be fine. What I did was I did the brim and the cast on for the smallest size, but then increased for the medium size after the rib, because the medium size measurement wise is exactly my size. Looking back on it, I could have probably stuck with the small, but I don't really want to rib back now. And like I said, the brim is nice and tight, which I think is very important for me for color work projects. I just like my hat to be tight. And then the rest is not as tight, but I have quite a lot of hair sometimes as well, so it might not be a bad thing. And I just love this project. I am so in love with color work, as you guys probably can tell from the content of this show. And now I really love this yarn as well, which makes me want to get all the 2-ply jumper weight from Jamieson & Smith. Yeah, I just really, really like it. This is a fingering weight yarn, but it's quite a fluffy sort of, it's a woolen spun yarn, you can see it. Like if you look at the strand, it's very, very woolly, and that's gonna be even nicer once you block it and wash it and soak it. It's just going to be a beautiful hat, and I never have any hats for myself, so that's actually a good thing, rather than knitting my, I don't know, 20th shawl already. So yeah, incredibly excited about this. So that is it in terms of my works in progress, and of course this is also stash acquisitions, but we will just ignore that. That never happened, did it? Let's move on to some actual acquisitions. Yeah, whatever. Let's move on to acquisitions, and there's a few things that I've picked up as well. I realize already that this is becoming a very chatty podcast, but that's just what happens because a lot of the things that I'm talking about have to do with things that happened, and so I think we'll just mix acquisitions with life in general, and if you're not interested in either of those, that's totally fine. So one thing that showed up was my new Hedgehog Fibers sock twist sock club. So if you're a member of that club, please look away because I'm going to show the yarn. So you have been warned, I'm going to show the skein now. This is the skein of yarn that I got. This is my very first time in the Twist Sock Club by Hedgehog Fibers. I've previously only been part of the sock club. So in this one you only get one skein per month. And this is their 80% Blue Face Leicester 20% nylon yarn, which again I've never tried, I've never had in my hands, so I'm very excited about these. And the first color that I got is called Spring, which is kind of weird because it's June. But besides that, this color took a while to grow on me, but I now really like it. I think it's a really fun speckled color. Yeah, it's got some, I'm not sure if you can tell, it's got some pink in here, which I think is really pretty and unexpected. And yeah, I like the base color as well. I like that it's not white, it's sort of like this almost minty gray. So it's a really pretty skein. It took a while for me to love it, but I do really like it, and I think this will be a great pair of socks. Also, this feels like a really hefty skein. It's only 100 grams, but this is a lot of yarn. I need to weigh it. I feel like it must be overweight because this is a very, very big squishy skein. But yeah, that is my hedgehog fibers. And then the rest of my acquisitions comes from a little backstory of my sister visiting, which I think I mentioned last week. I was about to pick my sister up from the train station after I recorded. So not my littlest sister, my little sister who is 18 now, which is making me feel really, really old. She came to visit for the weekend. She stayed for 2 nights, and I picked her up from the train station, and we went straight to my favorite local yarn store, which is Die Mercerie in Munich. We had been planning that, and I knew I was going to be going a little bit crazy, and I did. Because we walked in, it was the first time since December that I've been there, which is so, so, so sad. And they had just gotten in new yarn from Ching Fiber. So Ching Fiber, she's a dyer based in the UK, I think. I'm not quite sure where, but it's definitely had that in the UK. I've often seen her yarn on Instagram, and I've actually been in her Etsy store, but I've never bought any. And when they had that lying around, I went a little bit crazy. So the first skein that jumped out from all the other skeins is this crazy neon one. I'm not sure if the neonness of it is coming out, but it is very, very, very bright. And I was like, well, I kind of really like this neon colorway. This is the colorway Smiler, and it is just beautiful. All the skeins that I got are in her single space, Merino singles, and isn't this amazing? I just love it. It's totally crazy, but I really, really, really like this skein. And then I went more crazy and paired it with this one, which is a little bit untypical, but I think this will make a perfect brioche shawl. Yes, it is crazy. Yes, it's kind of insane, but I think it will be the perfect brioche project, which is what I'm planning to do with these. Also, this one is really beautiful. This is cuttlefish, and like, just look at all these colors. I think this is a stunning colorway as well. It's just beautiful. So these are the 2 colors that I was going to get. And then just as we were pretty much finished, my sister convinced me to get this one as well. Because this one has just beautiful bright speckles. I think it's stunning. And I, by the life of me, cannot read what the colorway of this one is. Maybe you can. That could be anything for me. But I don't care, because this skein again is beautiful. It's just, I'm not sure if it's even really showing up, but the colors in here, just look at that. Isn't that amazing? And I just decided to jump on it because it's a yarn that I've wanted to try for ages, and because why not? So I got these 3 skeins. Kind of broke the bank, but I love them, and I'm very, very excited for this. I also, for the first time, saw Brooklyn Tweed Loft knit up in a Colorwork sweater. And again, oh my gosh, Colorwork sweaters, and it felt so beautiful. I wanted to get a sweater's quantity of Loft, but again, not really what I need right now, but that might happen one day. But yeah, that is it in terms of my acquisitions, and I'm very, very excited about these. So, my hay fever is getting worse and my nose is getting very, very red. So I think it's a pretty good time for me to end this podcast. Just a few things before I go. Like I said, my sister was here, and we actually reorganized my entire stash. We didn't plan to do that. I just wanted to show her a couple of things, and then suddenly we did this huge project of taking my stash out and reorganizing it and putting it back together, and it looks pretty much the way it looked before, but now it's all organized, which is great. I think the most important part for me was to get all my sweater quantities in one place, because I do have my sweater quantities together in terms of having them in a bag together or in like boxes. But they were kind of stuffed in different parts of my shelf and my room. So now I have all my sweater quantities in one place, which is perfect because then, like I did on Friday night with my sweater, I can just go into my stash, look at all the sweater quantities that are already like ready to go, sorted, and then I can pick, and hopefully that will make me pick more from my stash rather than buy new ones. So that was really, really good and gave me a better image of what I had and also a better image of the crazy amount of yarn I have. I do want to do a de-stash, but I just don't have the time to do it, especially the time to ship it out. So if there's ever a time when I have like spare energy to do that, that would be good. I'm not really quite sure when that will happen, but maybe it'll happen. Otherwise, I feel like yarn doesn't go bad. So one day I might really, really want or need certain skeins, so I don't feel too terribly bad about it. And I also have this feeling of, well, one day I might not be able to get as much yarn and I'll be happy for all the yarn that I have. But yeah, we sorted through my stash, we watched a lot of soccer, we took photos of my fading point shawl, and I almost fell into the river, and it was hilarious. And I didn't find it hilarious then because it wasn't super warm that night. And I had my fading point, which, if you don't know, it's a huge shawl, so you kind of have to, it's I love it, but it's huge. I had ice cream in one hand, my shawl around my neck, my phone in my other hand, and we were just going along the river because we had just taken some photos and it was quite muddy, and suddenly I just felt myself sliding back down the hill towards the river. And I was freaking out, and at some point just kind of like stopped, and I was just stood there and didn't really know. I didn't want to move because I didn't want to risk sliding into the freaking river. And my sister was there and she was just cracking up. She just had a fit, and it was really hilarious. But at that moment I was like, help me, get out of here, don't laugh at me. And it was just so funny. Besides that, we just had a lot of fun. We did a lot of knitting because my sister is crafty as well. It was really cute. She had bought some yarn to knit a cowl in the beginning of the year when we went to a yarn festival, and she brought it with her, and I helped her get through the initial rib, and then she was just onto the stockinette going round and round, and suddenly it clicked and she was super fast and really enjoying it. And then on Monday morning I basically just put her in the train back as I was going to work. And then an hour later I got a photo of her, and she had knit in the train and made lots of progress, and that just made me such a proud knitter. So yeah, and besides that, I had been traveling last week for work. It's been crazy intense. I think I got like 5 hours of sleep every night, which is way too little for me. So I'm quite exhausted, but it's been okay. It's been good. And now I have 3 more days of work, and then we'll be off to France, and I'm so excited and ready for it. To be honest, it's been so stressful. I haven't really even had time to think about a holiday. I haven't had time to get excited about it, but it will happen and it will be so good. I'm so excited. We're going to an area north of Nice again, and we love that area of Côte d'Azur. It's just beautiful. I was planning to clear my needles before that and bring lots of new projects. Instead, I've cast on all the things, so I guess I'll be bringing all those things. But yeah, I just do a lot of knitting, eating, and we have a beautiful Airbnb with a pool, so it should be amazing, and I'm so ready for that. I unfortunately have one more business trip before that, so it doesn't quite feel like almost on holiday yet because I have another trip to do first. But I'm very, very excited about that. This means that, of course, I won't be podcasting for a while. I will not be podcasting next week, but probably the weekend after. So most likely you should see me again in 2 weeks. Until then, if you do want to follow me in terms of the holiday and what's going on, follow me on Instagram. I'm the Happy Knitting Podcast there. And yes, I will be spamming holiday pictures as well as knitting pictures. So if you don't want to see holiday pictures, just don't look. And if you're interested, you can follow me there. I tend to not sort of filter my content because I don't know, you want to see my knitting and not my holiday. I just feel like I'll just post whatever I want and that'll be that. So until then, I hope you guys have a great 2 weeks. Have so much fun with your knitting. And we will definitely be catching up on Ravelry and Instagram anyway, so I'll be checking those threads. So feel free to keep going there. And until then, thank you so much for watching. Happy knitting. Bye.